you have the video to post later on.
Okay, I started the recording.
Okay. Thank you so much. Merry
And
good day.
thanks for joining us, Mike. But we can achieve quorum as we've researched the bylaws, even if you are at something else and need to go. So if you do need to step away, Mike, that is okay. We will maintain quorum. And with that, I will call this regular meeting of the PRTPO Executive Board to order. First up is approval of the agenda. Any changes needed to the agenda, or are there any objections to the agenda? If there are no problems, I'll assume assent and we can move on with this agenda. Okay. We'll call that, and then I would entertain a motion about the consent agenda. Are there any changes or questions about the consent agenda? One comment I have is it's nice going through the minutes when you do have to miss a meeting because it's all there. Very extensive minutes. So thank you, Amna. Anyone willing to make a motion regarding the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
By Randy, seconded by, I'm sorry, who?
I did.
Fred. Port Townsend? Okay. All in favor of approval of the consent agenda as presented, indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Consent agenda is approved. And we can move on to our other big action thing, the invoice approval for Q4, attachment C. Amna, do you want to walk us through this at all, or?
I think I can get that, Chair.
Yeah, yep, please, Ed.
Thank you. So one thing that, back in December of last year, we transitioned from having contract staff, which was TheraBlack, with 3P transportation. We moved into having Kitsap Transit employee, Amna Parson, take over that role. And we, a little bit unexpectedly, achieved quite a bit of savings so far. Just the hourly rate difference and the overhead difference. So instead of having, a tight budget going forward, we are flush with money. And this is kind of a rare problem to have, slightly awkward given times. But we have 174,000 left to spend between now and June 30th, or hand back what's left over. So this is really a chance for you as board members to take a look at those unfunded needs in our Unified Planning Work Program. It's a whole series of tasks and projects that you identified when developing the UPWP, sort of towards the tail end after the mandatory tasks that we accomplish. And, I'd like to brief you now so we can get ready to, do some more work. And this kind of blends into the next agenda item, but just to foreshadow a little bit, we do have the requirement by April of 2028 to update our website, the public-facing part of our website, to meet the Americans with Disability Act requirements. And, I'll speak more on that going forward, but that's some low-hanging fruit. We do have some work on the Hood Canal Bridge. There was the successful deviation that you all and Thera developed and AMNA for the World Cup. And that might be something, if the region's interested in exploring and making that more permanent, there could be some work that's accomplished there. And there's a whole host of other transportation issues out on the peninsula and here in Kitsap that can be addressed. So I just kind of want to turn it over to you, Chair, and see what direction y'all want to move forward.
Sure. I think more information from you, Ed, would be great. I guess I'd love to get the pulse of the group, though. I mean, with the successful deviation of the Hood Canal Bridge during World Cups, the opening schedule, to me, that feels like low-hanging fruit or something that has been a priority for a long time. But so to me, that raises to the top immediately. But other thoughts, or maybe Ed, why don't you go through the options quickly if people aren't
Sure. Yeah, I'm
motivated.
gonna share my screen probably. I'm pulling up the UPWP now.
Great, thank you.
Just a moment.
And while Ed does that, any other thoughts about what to do with this great, happy windfall? We
I'm
have
gonna share
order.
my screen now.
All right, go ahead, Nicole.
I was going to say, I do think the Hood Canal Bridge should be a priority, but then also updating the website should be a priority. Just speaking from our agency, it's quite a lift. So getting ahead of that, I think, would be money well spent.
Thanks, Nicole. Other thoughts? Well, I'll get. Oh, never mind. He's got a. All right, go ahead, Ed.
Okay.
Oh, well, we'll get to Wendy as soon as Ed's done.
Okay. So here is the list of the unfunded needs. So there was extending our service agreement with the Association of Washington Cities GIS group.
We're not seeing anything, or I'm not seeing anything yet.
Oh,
Just
you're not.
No.
Okay.
It
I'm
says,
having.
it says it started sharing the screen, but it's just black.
Let me try again. I'm having really bad computer issues this morning, so I'm not sure what's going on. I was just on vacation for 4 days, so.
Well, that explains it.
How about now?
Yeah,
There it
now we
is.
see it.
Now you're getting it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. Finally. So we have the AWC agreement. We're down to, we're using up those hours for the Human Services Transportation Plan, so we're getting a little bit lower on that. So that's an option to extend that. So the PRTPO and its members essentially would have access to GIS services going forward. You had mentioned the Hood Canal Bridge strategy. There was more work, we could commission a study to do an analysis of traffic and economic impacts of the Hood Canal Bridge to kind of set the stage for some background research to promote that permanent waiver. Looking at more opportunities on long distance bus service around the Olympic Peninsula. There was an item for promoting regional cooperation to improve ferry service reliability. So that was an interesting one there. I know we have the Port Townsend to Whidbey Island ferry that sometimes has some issues, and then also here on the Kitsap Peninsula. You look at a regional transportation resilience forum, especially with the natural disaster risk and then the lack of options for residents in the area to get around any emergency or disasters. We have coordinated freight data collection process. So this is a result of the state's freight and goods transportation system. Actually, I just got an email for the 2027 ask this morning. And it's a lot of data. They asked for volumes and classification of vehicles on the T2 and T3 routes. Those are routes based on trucking tonnage and volume. So that's something that we could go ahead and look at to help WashDOT with that process. And we have another one, additional program funding to enhance the planning capacity of PRTPO. So that's basically, goes back to the funding issue, which is kind of, at least until June 30th, not an issue for us. Now, after June 30th, I don't know. But there was initially an ask by the RTPOs around the state for additional funding last year. It didn't necessarily succeed. And then, as mentioned before, the website, ADA compliance. So these are the unfunded needs that we have with the estimated costs as of June 30th.
Thank you for that, Ed. I will say that on the ferry side, before we go to Wendy, I know there's a ferry caucus that's being set up really led by San Juan County, as only half of our counties really have direct ferry service. It might be more logical to, tie in PRTPO staff with the ferry caucus that's kind of building up, but that's my thought. Wendy, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I'm just trying to grasp where we are in the framework of things because I think we've reviewed this list before, and Ed, I need you to jog my memory. Is that because the TAC provided a recommendation to pursue the ADA compliant website? And now that I see in the agenda for item 3, new funding has pushed its way in. We gladly receive it. So now we're looking at other things, or did I miss a TAC meeting and the TAC has made a recommendation to the executive council what would be done with these additional funds from this program from this budget period?
Yeah, I believe that the TAC, I'd have to go back and look at the agendas, either in July or May recommended that we move forward with this. And the executive committee has been made aware as well. So that's why we went ahead and applied for the funding for WashDOT. Now we don't have to take that funding. If the board here, if we're awarded that funding, the board says don't take it.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know.
No, so we're taking the ADA compliance piece out of that list that you just showed us because that is a done deal. The executive board has already approved that.
They have not. I don't believe, Craig, that they've approved it. They allowed me to go ahead and seek the funding request.
Okay,
Yeah.
Great.
But still, we probably couldn't focus on that with this other windfall since we are seeking those funds right now.
Yeah, I hope to have an answer soon from WashDOT. The application period closed on the 14th of August. So I hope they will have an announcement here in the next week or two. But as of right now, we don't know. So you're right, Chair.
So any follow-up, Wendy?
Oh, just that I wanted to clarify that the TAC did make a recommendation with this of what to move on as the second place project that the board should consider. Which one was that?
So the
you're
TAC
looking at me like, okay, I should let me say that one more time.
Okay.
Did the TAC created number 1 ADA compliance for website? What was their second recommendation for
I don't
the board?
believe there was a second recommendation.
Okay, so we're doing this dry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so what happened is that when we were creating the Q4 invoice and updating the UPWP annual report, we were looking at the findings at that time. And that led to us seeing this extra funding, and that happened after the TAC meeting.
Okay.
So the TAC the TAC was we were only discussing the recommendation for potential funds from WashDOT, and they recommended we go after ADA funding for ADA compliance. So we haven't been able to talk to TAC about this.
Great. I so appreciate this. You're my compass. Thank you.
Any other thoughts? And I guess one other thing on the Hood Canal Bridge, there's kind of left in that list that as you went through it, the UPWP is more study on the bridge. And, because we achieved that earlier goal of the temporary change of practice. And I guess maybe I would reiterate making that change permanent doesn't necessarily have to happen after that study. We have a data set now, or WashDOT presumably has a data set about what happened during that time. And I feel like pushing on that is more solid than a rope at this point. But other thoughts? I guess Nicole and I are of one mind, it sounds like. No, let's go ahead, Amna.
I would think that having having a priority of which one you guys are interested in, because at the end we're looking at this as of now, how much money we have, and then we're projecting how much we will still have after a certain amount of time. There's other stuff that comes up in between, and so I think it'd be best to know if you guys are interested in if we don't get the funding from WashDOT, then we go for then we prioritizing the website update for ADA compliance. But if we do get the funding from WashDOT, then we're gonna go towards more of support within to focus on a project related to the Hood Canal Bridge, DPWP. Is that what I'm getting from this? These are the two we're looking at. Is there a third one we're interested in as well? Or just those two, the ones that we're like popping out here? Because we're kind of we have a buffet and we don't know how much room we have in our stomachs to eat, but it's like which one, if we had an option, if you're gonna fully be fed, what do you have a third one you have in mind as a project?
You want me to pull up that UPWP list again, or it's
Sure,
something?
let's fly through it one more time. Thank you, Ed.
Okay, just a moment.
Other thoughts, and I think you captured it correctly, Amna. At least that's the general sense that I'm getting, that the WCAG updates are critical. We have to do them if it doesn't get funded with this other source. This is a good use of some of this surplus. I mean, that's $12,000. Our surplus is still 170. I think we can all recognize that giving it back is probably lowest on the priority list. Yeah.
So we have the GIS. Then we just mentioned the Hood Canal.
Mhm.
This actually asks for a group, an advocacy group. So that would be pretty interesting. I mean, if you combine that with the study, that's probably going to eat up quite a bit of the funding. And then we had long distance bus service around the peninsula. We know the transit agencies work together to ensure seamless transfers around there, and then also to provide long distance service themselves, in addition to the state funded Dungeness line.
And there was an interest too for connectivity at the in-person meeting as well in April about something related to that as well. The ferry service was not something that came up a lot during that meeting.
Yeah.
I know resiliency was something that came up briefly.
Oh, there goes my
I
screen.
Yeah,
I
I've
would
never
I
haven't
would
seen that
Something's
sad
going on
face.
with my computer. I got to work with IT. I apologize.
No,
I would
that's okay.
also
Thanks.
add that that we are tight on time because we did start a little bit late. So if right now if the board only wants to go for these two items, that's totally fine. And then we can bring it up again in October to have
Yeah.
a tertiary one, of course, at a different time. Or email and I can push it out to the group to have a conversation via that instead. Or do a doodle where you can just kind of put the priority there as well of like
Can't do a
one,
doodle. That's a serial meeting. But
Yeah.
Serum, oh, yes.
I think you got priorities there. And there was I see Wendy's hand again, but the last one that we didn't get to again this time was about PRTPO capacity building, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that makes sense too, just because we're talking about, unspent PRTPO capacity. So it seems pretty natural as a third one if there is something beyond those top two. But Wendy, did you have another point? And then
Yeah,
we
I had a
can.
point to mention that the one that was way above our budget, the $150,000 to work on the Hood Canal Bridge, that one could actually be reassessed or maybe prepared the scope a little differently now that we've heard the progress that's made with Long Live the Kings. They've hired consultants that were pretty impressive and that they've pursued some issues that probably were within that original scope of work. So maybe the $150,000 is inflated and it could come closer to be considered instead of being scratched off my list like I initially I said, oops, it's too much. But no, if we go back and read what we would like to desire in an operational analysis, that might be very helpful to this region.
That's a good point, Wendy.
So what I'm getting is that we'll move forward with the website first and then Hood Canal. But the Hood Canal could also be a hybrid or reevaluated into a different project or description could be updated. And so I will make sure I bring that to the October meeting if we have the capacity to talk about that then, so we can have a more detailed understanding how to rephrase that into something more conclusive after the long to kings and as well as the deviation altogether can change the narrative.
I think that sounds
Al
right.
is definitely multimodal and it so touches upon so many aspects of our region. And I hope that Mason County feels that way too. That it helps for the circulation all the way around the Puget Sound.
You also have the option, in the future to amend the UPWP at any time. So if you have
Mhm.
new ideas or, that kind of thing, that is an option. And lots of RTPOs amend their UPWP throughout the year.
Great.
I think George is.
So I guess we're probably not going to take action now, but maybe in October. It sounds like we've given guidelines. If anyone is not, oh, George, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to jump in really quick on the comment about maybe the $150,000 is an inflated amount. That was actually lower than the budget we had developed when we were planning it as an internal study. And I'll point out if there's, and we had access to a non-call consultant. Um, it's possible you might find a consultant who can offer to do it for a lower price. That consultant won't have access to the databases that we have. These are proprietary databases regarding the bridge openings. So I just kind of want to set an expectation that that 150,000 was based on discussions I had had with your former manager and reflected an ability that WashDOT had to provide in-kind support and to get to certain databases that an outside consultant won't have. So consider that as part of your deliberations, that it may not be in an inflated budget. Thank you.
Thank you for that context, George. Okay, it still seems like kind of rescoping this ask, even though that perhaps does not change that much. Any other thoughts before we move on?
I do have a question, Chair. Would the board feel comfortable with staff issuing a request for proposals at this time for the ADA work?
And so that would be if the grant came in, that would be the not to exceed would be $12,000 or $10,000 or whatever, and if the grant didn't come in, then we would prioritize, as we discussed, the surplus.
Yes, if I receive notice of award for the grant between now and let's say the TAC meeting on September 10th.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Only if I receive the funding from WashDOT.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, only if you receive why only if you receive the funding from WashDOT? If you don't, it's still one of our top priorities. It's something we have to do.
Okay, I just wanted to clear that up. So we'll begin building a scope and then get an RFP issued.
Let's take action on that if we can. That's what I think. But anyone willing to make a motion to that effect?
I'll also move that the lead agency, Kitsap Transit, pursue a request for proposals for the ADA compliance of the PRTPO website.
Second.
Oh, moved by Wendy, seconded by Fred. Thank you. Very well stated motion, Wendy. Any further conversation? All right. Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye, raising your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right.
Thank you, Chair.
That is, unanimous. Thanks. That's a good interim, so we can keep moving forward on that. Okay, as Amanda said, got started a little late, so we've already started talking about it. It's a good segue to move on to ADA compliance. Who's going to lead this off? Is that
I think we covered 99% of it. The 1% is I did a little bit of fishing in July, and I called a company called Civic Plus. They're based out of Kansas, and we just had a little Zoom chat. And I just kind of wanted to get a feeler out there for what kinds of products are available to, improve the website. And I'm not advocating for their product or not, but they demonstrated their product for me, which was basically it's a piece of software that we don't necessarily have to update our documents. They have a tool that does that for us. And they gave us an annual estimate of $3,000 a year. So it was a lot cheaper than I thought. Now that's one company. So, if we issued the RFP, we're going to get a lot of different companies bidding. This is a hot topic right now around the country. So I expect a ton of responses and probably a ton of ranges with the costs. So I just wanted to give you an update that that's what Civic Plus demonstrated to me, in our 30-minute conversation. It's kind
You
of a
probably
neat
find
tool.
Civic Plus is the backbone of certainly Jefferson County's website, and I think many of the cities and other counties around too. So it's a pretty established. I mean, you still have to go out to the RFP and see.
Right.
Bainbridge Island too, are the same. So, it's robust. I mean, is Civic Plus the backbone of PRTPO already?
No, we use Squarespace. And then before we get to Nicole, I would like to ask the board if any of the members would like to be on the review team for those RFPs. It would be helpful to have a member or two.
Oh, Nicole volunteered.
I did not volunteer, but I think someone from my team might be good because we've actually had a lot of issues with Civic Plus saying they can do things and then in reality not being able to do things, especially in terms of being compliant. So we're actually Jefferson Transit will be pulling back on some of these offerings that they've had because they're not compliant and they're difficult to work with. But so I was going to say, we should kind of crowdsource our experiences because I know that Civic Plus does have a what feels like a monopoly in the marketplace. But I think if we kind of all talk about our experiences openly, we might be able to find a solution that would best work for PRTPO. So I'd love to nominate someone from my staff to do that. Notice I did not say me, someone from my staff to kind of share in that.
Awesome.
Great. Thanks, Nicole. Does anyone else want to volunteer someone else who's not here to participate in this committee? We're going through it too. I'm not sure. If you need someone, Ed, we have someone certainly. I mean, all of our agencies are going through the same thing, so it does feel like this is the kind of committee that would benefit from a community of practice kind of approach to it. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, we won't. I guess if you don't want to, volunteer other staff at the meeting, but you want to talk to them first, you can just reach out to Ed with other participants on that committee. You've been granted authority to move forward with this RFP. So I think this is the kind of thing that can help all of our agencies as we help PRTPO.
Yeah, and we'll get rolling on that at the staff level. So expect to hear from us as time goes on.
Great.
I'm crossing my fingers you'll find someone local that can just step in and provide annual assistance at a reasonable price.
Awesome. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So stay tuned on that, and we'll move on to the HSTP update. Who's going to lead that off?
Hi, everybody.
Hey there. Welcome back. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys too. And interesting discussions. And we might touch on some of that again here in this briefing. And I know that you're behind, so I'm going to try to move pretty quickly. I'm here to just update you on the draft HSTP, where we're at and what's coming up. This will come back to you in October for approval. Because there are a few of you who've not ever been through this process before, I just want to remind you, please, it's all in the staff report, so I'm not going to repeat everything, but this is a periodic update of something that you do. It's sort of a standing work program item every 4 years. So it was last updated in 2022. The the Human Services Transportation Plan is really joined at the hip with the DOT's consolidated grant process. So the two of those things work in very close coordination. And what we're doing as a part of this update is sort of updating our understanding of the community, the unmet needs, the strategies to address those unmet needs. And then we also try hard to add additional value to it above and beyond what its requirements are for WSDOT. And your conversation just now about the ADA compliance does reflect on the HSTP. I think when we very first talked about it, I was envisioning that we would do a story map. And as all this ADA stuff was coming out, it just got to be a little bit much to try to figure out how to do something that would have a long shelf life and maintain that ADA compliance. So we've built it in Squarespace, like most of your other plans. There's a public facing aspect to it, and hopefully you all have had time just to peruse it a little bit ahead of today's meeting. We're going to go through it real briefly here. And then also there is, it'll probably go up this afternoon or by Monday at the latest, a PDF version of the plan that has the same narrative that's online, but it's also got some other content that WSDOT looks for that is, for the administrative compliance part of it, that's not necessarily relevant to the stakeholders who might be looking at it. So it'll all be there. You can download it as a printable PDF, but anyhow, so that should go up later this afternoon, and we'll get a copy of that draft to WSDOT when we do that as well. And I see Laura's on here. The other thing that I'll tell you before I walk through the website with you, again, just by way of a reminder, what we did this time around is we have really focused our efforts on entities that we did not, well, I'll just say I didn't know, and apparently our consultant at the time didn't know existed. I think folks at WSDOT know, but they're called Accountable Communities of Health. So Olympic Community of Health is a state-designated accountable community of health that includes Clallam, Jefferson, and Kitsap counties, and Mason County is a part of Choice. Think about these ACHs, these Accountable Communities of Health. They're sort of like RTPOs, except for the health and human services sector. And so you're talking hospitals and health clinics, you're talking senior centers, food banks, community action councils, housing programs. These are many of the destinations that people who have special transportation needs are trying to reach. And so it has just been fascinating to focus on them, and the data that they produce, that they're required to produce every 3 to 5 years to retain their tax status with the federal government, is a very rich repository of information. So that's something new this time around that we did not do 4 years ago. The other thing I'll share with you too, just before we get into the document itself, is that in addition to the regular strategies, and we'll talk about what those strategies are and why they matter to consolidated grants. In addition to those, and this is again relevant to your earlier conversation today, we've included a small number of issues that really are not a consolidated grant kind of a strategy, but instead are things that could help move the needle on the Hood Canal Bridge, how to minimize the disruption that it causes to transit service reliability. So that you'll see that in there. And I don't know, let me see if I should be able to do screen sharing. I am going to pull up the website, and hopefully that's what you all are seeing now is the website. And so if you were to go out to the homepage, this might be how you found it, I hope. You can see, we'll take you to the Human Services Transportation Plan. This particular page will disappear when the plan is adopted. But right now it's just a landing page, let people know what they're coming into. There's also an opportunity for announcements on this page. And so like right now we have a poll out on the streets for those human services providers. What I've done is I've synthesized so much information that I've only so far heard from one person, but with a little correction to make. I want to just make sure that the information that I've synthesized from so many different resources, that I've captured the gist of the issues right. And we also have a lot of information out here on the consolidated grants process and helping people make that connection between the Human Services Transportation Plan and that grant program. And I've had several meetings with various providers on that program. When you go into the plan, it's pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of glitz and glamour in here. There's some images I still want to add, but I almost blew up the site. I love Squarespace. Anyhow, I almost blew up the site last weekend trying to get some images up, and I'll save that for later. The sections are laid out nice and clean. The human services, this first section has a lot of information that WashDOT expects to see. There's a lot of information I've found when I'm talking with providers that as soon as I start talking about the Human Services Transportation Plan, they kind of glaze over a little bit. So you'll see through this, I've tried to use language that they're going to be able to relate to. We're going to talk in a minute about some of the insights that I've gained from my outreach and engagement with these folks. But transportation is vitally important to folks in this community. And so I've tried to take this information that I've gained from them and put this in here in this context. Talk about reliable transportation. A part of this outreach is helping people understand that reliable transportation is, I'm going to say, more than just transit. Transit is a phenomenal backbone, but the kinds of services that are needed really need to come from a bunch of different players. So you can go down through here, and this is a lot of the stuff that you would expect to see in here. I do try to make a distinction. Something I really run into a lot is I want to reemphasize, and this comes out of also your comprehensive plans as well, the availability of services that a person has to them is they have more services in town than out in the hinterlands. And so I just sort of make that case here. There's it's a really logical thing, but it just needs to be said because it isn't really evident in a lot of the information. And so you'll see all that through here. So you can find a lot of, just for a lot of people, there'll just be, there's one of my placeholders if I can get the data tables to go in there without blowing up the site. The big thing about the Human Services Transportation Plan that we are looking at are the populations that are vulnerable to being mobility challenged. And by that, we're talking about those populations that may not be able to drive. And if they cannot drive, can they reach the services and care that's available for them? There are three primary populations that we look at here as required by federal and state law. It's seniors, people 65 and older. Not that everybody who's over 65 cannot drive, but that is sort of an indicator that at some point from here on, you might need some help with travel. So we've got really good information there. This is an old region, especially, I don't need to tell you, North Olympic Peninsula. A lot of seniors up there. People with disabilities is another group that we pay really close attention to because for a lot of them, driving is impossible. And disabilities really covers a really wide range of things. So people often jump right to the conclusion of, it's like we're talking about people maybe who use wheelchairs and they can't drive. But cognitive disorders, traumatic brain injury, the stuff I've learned about traumatic brain injury is crazy. So there are just a lot of other things that can cause a disability, a temporary disability, even like a hip surgery or something like that, a hip replacement where you're simply going to be bound up for a few weeks. You can have a temporary disability. The one that I'd really like to focus on just for a minute are low-income households. I have really in my work previously, I've always thought about, these three as sort of equally important, seniors, disabilities, income. I have to say this process in particular, maybe it's because of the soaring fuel prices. Me personally, I'm going to be leaving this process seeing that income is the indicator. It is the indicator of transportation vulnerability. And it shows up also on the health, access to health and human services side. And so the folks who don't have the finances, the financial wherewithal to own and operate a vehicle are really, and it sometimes that also is a senior, and sometimes that is also a person with disabilities. But there's a large segment of the population that does not fall under the poverty categories because they make too much to be considered in the federal poverty level. And so you'll find in the resources that I'll show you in just a minute, a lot of information on ALICE, and so I'm sure because I found some of it on your websites, information on ALICE, asset limited, income constrained, employed statistics. This is produced by the United Way, and I'm just trying to point more people towards that because it really underscores the challenge for these folks who are not poor enough to qualify for some of the services that are out there, but they are very, very poor, and transportation is a huge barrier for them. We also look at information related to tribes. One of the things we've learned over the years with PRTPO is just the patterns of travel between the tribes are not always what, say, maybe the way the transit services are lined out, and the distances that they've got to cover. So this section is sort of a big, long, it's got a lot of information in here, and there's a lot of data that you can't really see on the screen, but I'll show it to you. This is, in a lot of regards, the for some people, a lot of the substance of it. But I think that for the people, especially who are pursuing consolidated grants, there are two sections in particular that are important. This is one of them, the unmet needs and barriers. And what I found as I was going through all the information from the Health and Human Services side of things, I've organized them this go round into three, unmet needs and barriers, challenges from three different perspectives. One is that from the individuals, the challenges that individuals face. And this is as you scan down through here, you'll see this is a lot of stuff. And I really want to clarify, from everything I'm seeing and reading, I've had people say to me, well, people shouldn't be moving out to rural, Jefferson County if they have disabilities. They don't move out to rural Jefferson County if they have disabilities. They get a disability when they've been living in a place for a long time, or they grow old in a place, or they lose a job. And so that's what is really for a lot of these folks who are facing barriers. They didn't used to have a barrier, and they do now. And so, and it falls under a lot of things that we've seen before, and we know long distance travel is hard and all of that. The second group of issues that I wanted to call out here are the issues that the human services providers themselves deal with. What are the implications for rural healthcare when they have clients who cannot show up to access the services that are available to them? You have worse health outcomes for the patients and the clients and community well-being. It stretches. They're already strained to meet the services, the demand for services that are there. And so it makes that delivery of services less efficient. And then there's also just the issue that because we are medically underserved in this region, that they're having to send more people out of county or out of the region to get care. And that's a really hard thing. The other thing, and I will say, this was working with a different group. I was actually moved to tears to hear the efforts to we want to divert people out of the criminal justice system. Mental health is not a crime. And substance use disorder is a health condition. So we want to, as a community, we want to divert these people out of the system and get them into care. But as one person explained to me, said, MAT, medically assisted treatment, involves a rigorous dosing and counseling schedule. And if patients miss those treatments, they do not have successful outcomes. And he said it just doesn't work like that. He said it's hard when you see patients who genuinely want to get clean and are ready to do the hard work, but they don't have the means of getting to treatment on a reliable basis. I had no idea how complicated behavioral health, transportation for behavioral health care and substance use disorder treatments are. And it's a really challenging population need to meet. And so therefore, people don't get the care that's available to them. They don't go to the food pantries to get the food. They're hungry when there's food available to them, but they just don't have the means of getting there. So finally, and then the third category that I wanted to highlight for you are those challenges that providers face. And this gets down to the color of money, what services can be provided where, who can be picked up, who's eligible for services, all of that. So there's a lot of things associated with money. Does it come in on a timely basis to replace vehicles? Because vehicle maintenance and asset management is so important. The challenges of doing long distance service connections is very real. And so you'll see these things in here. I also have a few things that are, I'll get to that in a second. So I wanted to spell these out because I felt like when I was going through the 2022 plan, it really, if somebody's coming from the outside looking in, the issues that are related to individual travel are jumbled up with the issues that service providers face. And so we tried to structure it in a way that meets all those providers' needs. And then the second piece of this that I think is probably of most interest to our grant applicants are the mobility strategies. These are the measures that are used to evaluate whether or not a consolidated grant is going to support a need that or support a project that addresses a strategy and a need in this region. And so what we've done this time is as I've organized them there are 5 types of projects that can be funded through consolidated grants. And so I've organized them like that. There's operations projects and a variety of strategies for those operations projects. There are mobility management projects. This is about getting people the information they need to make their travel plans, the information that they need to learn how to use the bus or whatever. There's a lot. This is a great low-hanging fruit opportunity. There are also asset management, vehicle replacement, equipment acquisition, those types of project strategies that fit there. There are projects, what are called small construction projects in the Consolidated Grant Program. These would be things like bus stop improvements, ADA, accessibility improvements, crosswalk, sidewalks, $2.5 million or less. You're not going to build a new transit facility probably with this, but this is things that make transit and other transportation services more accessible. And then planning, that's the 5th kind of project. And so we've got needs in here that are specific to planning. These are these aren't sketched out. You can think about these in different ways. What has come up from both Amy and Wendy have both talked about the coordination with schools, and so this is an example of from everything I've researched. Now, I don't see that a lot of school district specific transportation kinds of things are eligible for consolidated grants. However, from everything I'm understanding, more and more students are using the bus, and it was comments that Amy had made a while ago about maybe this, and so I'm hoping that this gets at this opportunity to develop education information materials in coordination with the school districts to help middle schoolers and high schoolers learn how to like ride the adults' transportation, as it were, and where are the safe places to access the transit and all of that. So these are examples of planning. And then the other thing that I wanted, this was what I was talking about earlier, some other efforts that are not a consolidated grant thing, but that are have come up through these issues. And one of those is the Hood Canal Bridge reliability. And this is very specific to it from a transit reliability perspective. And it was in talking with Chief Black in the East Jefferson Fire District that I got, one idea, and then some other ideas are in there. So what it would look like, I don't know, but this could be something as if you all move forward in looking at Hood Canal Bridge, you could look at a range of options if you were trying to just isolate transit on that. So, and then you'll also see in here, there are a couple of things in here that are very specific to supporting rural health services. And I say that because one of my big takeaways is that for me, in this process, what became so apparent is that transportation is a rural healthcare issue, and rural healthcare is a transportation issue. If this region cannot retain the health services that are already available, and they're already, again, already underserved in a lot of ways, this region more so than, especially the Clallam, Jefferson, Kitsap counties, that chunk of it has a lot of deficiencies in healthcare access. And so the more that people are being sent out of the region to access health services, the bigger your transportation gaps become. We already have unmet demand for long distance travel for health services out of the region. So it's vitally important to retain the resources that are there and expand them as much as they can. So you'll see language to that effect in here. There's a page in here that will go away kind of after September 9th. This is put together specifically for our consolidated grant applicants, helping them navigate how do you reference the HSTP in your consolidated grant proposal to support them in that. I've already got the early chapters out so they can see like, oh, here's the the page numbers that I can reference for it's coming up. I know it's coming up. Okay, I should not have done that right now.
That's okay there. I'm having problems with my PDF. That it was my computer
Okay,
issue.
all right. So it's not
Maybe
just me.
something
Okay,
bigger
maybe
than
it's
us.
okay. I'll get that off. The go back to that. And then also the other thing I would call to your attention. So there's PDFs out there of the essential sections. The resources page is the other one that I would point you to. All the data spreadsheets are out there. I was smart enough to load that one ahead of time. So you can download the Excel tables that have all the data in it by county. And then wherever I could, I also summed it up for the region. So you have those regional figures. And so you've got forecast out here. You've got characteristics for seniors and disability and poverty and LEP and all that. So you can just download those Excel files if you would like to do that. So that's out there on the resources page. And then and density maps, we were able to update the demographic profile. Oh, I probably should have had that preloaded. This is the resource that you all, I've got way too much stuff on my screen. This is the resource that you all had supported through an earlier GIS consortium investment. So you can go out, this will actually be pretty current now through 2030 until the next big census. So you've got by region, you've got population trends, demographic breakout. It's available by individual unincorporated, city, and then county figures as well, so you can mix and match and pull your data however you want there. We wanted to create this tool that would make it helpful for your staff as they're filling out these applications. And we also, I'm not going to challenge my internet signal to do this, pull up the equity dashboard. And then we've got a lot of other resources. I'm trying to get there to be more of an intersection, more of collaborative or engagement between these ACH partners and through this transportation process, through our transportation partners. So there's a lot of information here. I was telling you about the Alice data. That's all up here. So that's all there. We are going to, I've still got these 3 meetings coming up. I'm a bit behind on scheduling those. I want to get this draft out onto the street because we are relying so much on the resources that are right here and not having to go ask the providers themselves about it. What we want to do is when we bring the providers together, it's spelled out in the staff memo. We'll bring the human services providers. I want them to hear what the transportation services, what the agencies are doing, the 4 transit agencies. There's a remarkable amount of transportation service available. We have over 24 transportation providers. People tend to just jump right to the 4 transit agencies, and that's good. They provide a really essential backbone. There are a lot of other providers, though, and one of the things that I run into is people don't know where to get that information. So we want to connect people with that information. We also want to, I've talked with a couple of folks from tribes and gotten feedback. I want to explore a little bit more with tribal staff the connection between tribal transportation needs and their access to health services. And then the third one that I want to focus on was one that you all mentioned earlier too, is I want to get the transit agencies together to look at how hard would it be? Just is this how much further should we look into the possibility of being able to circumnavigate easily by transit the Olympic Peninsula. So those are the 3 that are coming up. We have the broad public process should start on Monday. Like I said, the provider poll is out there now. I will be taking this to the TAC. I thought it was going to be the 17th, but it's going to be the 10th. So, but I should, at that point, I will have a good idea of what other changes are needed to the plan. And then it'll come back to you in October for your review and approval. You're part of my public, so I would welcome any feedback or questions or comments in your own as you poke through there and look at it. Like I said, we're trying to do something more than, we'll say, just the HSTP. And I think that this potential collaboration going forward with the human services providers and less about pulling them into the HSTP and more about taking transportation to them, talk about going to where the people are. They don't need to be transportation planning experts. We need to learn a little bit more about them and plug in. It is showing up in all of their data, the importance. And actually, while I've got this screen up, this particular thing really just jumped out at me. This is out of Mason County's community health assessment. The number of people who have had to cancel, who missed appointments because transportation fell through. And it's just, and then when I look at things like this, like people, because all of these medical practices, these rural health centers, they do these very, very robust engagement processes every 3 years, and they talk with their clients. And when I see stuff like this, when their clients are saying that there is no public transportation in Mason County, and I know what the kind of service that Mason Transit provides, what it says to me is people don't know how to access information. And I think what Amy's got coming up, she's got an amazing resource fair coming up in September. And it's exactly the kind of thing where she's going to be, she'll have transportation providers there, but she's inviting all of the health and human services providers in Mason County to come as well. So it's a one-stop shop for individuals to come and get information on housing, on nutrition programs, on senior services, transportation, all in one place. And there you're putting transportation in the mix with everything else. It's where the people are trying to go. And I just think it's a really great example of how to reach out. So I'm going to stop my screen sharing right now with I think I am. And on. Oh, there we go. Stop share. Thank you. I couldn't see it. And turn it over to you for any discussion or questions that you might have of me at this point. And I see the time. It's very late.
It's okay. Thank you, Thera. It's great progress. And, it looked pretty compliant with the WCAG rules as well, except maybe the lime green color. That's the only one that I'm not sure. That might not be the high contrast. Some people have trouble with greens, but it looked really good. No serifs or anything like that. So appreciate it. Really appreciate the bringing the ACHs into the conversation too. I think it is really important. I guess the one, like the framing that I think about is that the greatest, you talked about income being, a real issue in the rural areas. And I think just full stop, the greatest social determinant of health is where you live, right? So even,
Yes.
we like in folks like Brennan, where, you might have a $1 million house on one side, on the water side, and a $200,000 shack on the other without, sufficient water or septic. Both of them, two people aging in place, they're both in a food desert. They're both in the same distance from medical facilities. So I guess I would just say that I think transit really and transportation can be a protective factor in those. So I guess looking for some of you certainly talked about a lot of the positives, but I just really feel that this is a great union and can even be taken one level further, I guess, as we look for funds for transportation and such. But
Absolutely. Yeah.
okay. With that, anyone else have any comments? And there, is willing to, of course, take comments at any time, but love to hear from other folks.
And I just want to thank everybody. I've been I've been pinging people in different ways. When we do this forum in September with the health and human services providers, I'm asking the 4 transit agencies to help share. Like what Clallam Transit's doing, Jason, what you're doing with Interlink is just fascinating. The only 2 transit agencies in Washington State that are using a ride-based app called Pingo or Ride Pingo. It's Clallam Transit and Kitsap Transit. It's being used in lots of other parts of the country. They're the first 2 using it in Washington State, and it's enabled the closest thing to I'm going to say real time on demand service where you don't have to make your reservations 2 days ahead of time, at least, for Clallam. And it's really, it's innovative. And I think it's going to take some more of those kind of innovative, trying something, see how it works, filling in some of these gaps. It's rural Washington is just much more challenging than urban Washington in terms of services.
Thanks, Sarah. Wendy might have something to say about Pingo. Go ahead, Wendy. You're muted still.
Thera, I hope you can jump in there and qualify what Pingo is good for and what it's not good for from the perspective of these service groups, because there's a lot of concerns about how it's not functioning to get people where they need to go in a timely way, so they miss their appointments and they have to start all over again. It's kind of like assuming that there's conveniences, but then there's the penalty of dismissing the ability to prioritize rides for their purpose. So
yeah, well, I
will really a thing that Pingo pinges on people's lifestyle who create these appointments that are hard to get in the rural areas in the first place. So I'll leave it at that.
And I appreciate you, Claire. I'm not a ride Pingo expert at all. That's why I'd love to, when we do this, bring the folks who are using it to the table and give us that experience on that. Thank you for letting me know about that. You could do this kind of stuff full time, and I don't have that. But
No. But if you are hearing stuff from your advisory
good
interviews, it would be great to be able to
I appreciate
recover that information and use it to create the need-based assessment.
Yeah, no, it certainly underscores the point. You've got to have the right tool for the right need, and it doesn't work for everybody everywhere. So that's certainly true.
Yeah.
So I will see you in a couple of months. I'll see a lot of you between now and then, but I'll be back here, I think, in 2 months to take this over the finish line for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Thera. And we are kind of out of time. So if you have more comments, just hit Thera up directly and we'll move on to the consolidated grants process.
Okay, so I'm gonna speed through a little bit because I want to make sure we have time at the end for folks to have their updates. So for consolidated grants, I've mentioned it before. I put back an agenda because we're now the deadline for applications for folks is September 9th. So TAC members have been notified about that and they're been notified of the process, and I just wanted to give you guys a briefing as well. So in 2024, last time around, we changed up the process a little bit for how we would do consolidated grants. As Sarah mentioned, it does relate back to HSTP. This bring a full stop to the beginning. The WashDOT has a program called Consolidated Grants, where folks are able to apply projects that are related to HSTP. The RTPO's role in that is to rank those projects in a way based off of the number of letters or rankings that were provided from WashDOT. So for right now, for this run, we have 22 letters 22 letters we're able to assign to projects within the PRTPO, whoever applies for them. We have 8 A's, 7 B's, and 7 C's. These letters relate to points that will be given to the project. So we say, hey, we gave this project an A, that usually means it's automatically awarded by WashDOT. A B gets 25 points, a C 12, and D doesn't have any additional points to them. So this is basically just PRTPO giving extra points to the project while WashDOT reviews it later on and decides which one moves forward, which does not move forward. For the process for us to assign these letters to these projects, the PRTPO we're requesting that the TAC, after they have submitted their project, the application to WashDOT, by September 9th, that they sent us a PDF copy over to staff so that we can see the application before we receive, because we don't receive the applications from WashDOT until around November or a little bit later. And so we'll give enough time to digest the projects. So this way we can actually receive the applications and then create a highlighted memo that highlights the project's duration, 2 to 4 years, the type of project, as well as highlight which strategies it's using for the HSTP. So we will determine we will determine which strategy they're trying to achieve from the project, which as well this can be contested by the applicant. Say, hey, we believe that this also covers these other strategies. That's totally fine. After we receive all the projects that we think that's out there, we'll send it out to the TAC. So the TAC is able to then, as an individual, as a TAC member, to give their own rankings to these projects. So they say, hey, well, for this other project, I think to be a B or a C or A and whatnot. And then we're asking them to give us their rankings by November 17th, so that we're able to then have like a diagram that has, this project got this many A's, this many B's, and then at the actual meeting, November 19th, we would then discuss these rankings together. So it's not like everyone says we can see who ranked what. So instead of us going to the meeting and having to bring up every project and then discuss every project individually, just so we have an idea of what people are thinking. It's more of a crowdsourcing prior to the meeting to understand how the team is thinking of these particular projects and in which rankings. And so from there, we will then have discussions around each of these projects and the rankings and try to come to consensus about how we want them to be ranked, and then recommend that to the board to be approved and send it out to WashDOT in December. So the process was done one time around. So it's still fairly new to the PRTPO. We did get an email where one of our members was concerned about the process and that that the process could lead to some bias within the review process. And so we had a meeting with WashDOT's public transportation department, and we were discussing it further with them about how we're doing the process. And to my understanding, as long as we make sure that we're giving voice to everyone and giving the ability for folks to then contest the actual ranking, it does have some barriers to reduce bias within the review of within the ranking of these projects. Yeah, so I think that's what I want to say on that. Do you want to mention anything, Laura? I see you online today. I'm not sure if you wanted to add on your viewpoints. No.
Amna, were you just talking to me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, no, I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. So that's the process we're going to move forward with. Is there any clarification needed from you guys to know what's going on? Of course, it will be at the TAC meeting where we go into depth with each of these, but then within the memo you guys will receive, we'll also probably have some more details about the rankings and then determinations in there as well, so you guys can see the full consensus from the TAC and their recommendation to you guys for approval. Any comments or questions?
Sounds good.
Okie dokie.
All right. Well, thank you, Amna. Thanks for catching us up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we will move on to the legislative folio messages. Is that you gonna lead us through
Yes.
this, Amna? Okay.
It's also me. So I got a little bit confused about the biennium, since we just end the first half and now we're in the second half. And so we should have established a legislative outlook group to discuss the language for the 2027. With us missing with us establishing that in June, we're now trying to play catch up with creating the actual message for the outlook. And so I attached into this packet the 2026 transportation outlook, so to give you guys a ability to review it again. Last year we had a consensus about focusing on complete planning. And it was a concept that was discussed within the group, focusing on having clear understanding of what WashDOT and what WashDOT wants us to do for certain projects, such as that the Safe Streets and the Complete Streets process, but also making sure that when we plan something, we're planning ahead. So we're coordinating with each other in that process. And that was the main body of that document. And of course, at the end of it, we also have our projects the projects where we want extra funding for, we want to highlight, as well as projects where we are tracking. And to clarify for those who are new, the Transportation Outlook is used at the annual legislative forum in December, where we invite officials to attend. And we discuss the transportation outlook with them, and we discuss their viewpoints for transportation planning within the next year. And so what I'm asking right now, are there any ideas for what to include in the outlook? Is anyone who's able to sit with me sometime in and between now and September to draft a outlook to then bring to the board to be approved in October. I'm assuming that there will be some finagling around the language a lot after that. But as long as we have a draft that you guys can review in October, give understanding that hey, you are okay with the messaging, and then we can discuss the language at a different time to finalize it before by November to send out would be perfect. So is there any ideas for what to be included? And is there any person who want to sit down with me and discuss language, as well as any projects you want to add to the last page of the outlook?
Let's start first, maybe just with anyone who's willing to sit with AMNA, and I'll volunteer for that, AMNA. I'm happy to sit down and help draft that. Anyone else that's willing to be in an ad hoc committee to kind of catch up with this legislative folio we're a little behind on? Can start.
Okay. So then the second question would be any topics. I did hear at the in-person meeting in April, there's a lot of talk about mobility management as a big topic because we are discussing HSTP. So maybe the portfolio can go as a cover sheet or like a promotion of the HSTP and what we were highlighting there. And maybe focus on projects that are related to connectivity or mobility issues that's happening around the region could be an option. Safety has been used before prior to this as well. There's been a lot of times we have mentioned funding increases, but I feel it's kind of weird to ask during our current situation with our budget. So is there any ideas you guys have as a message, or are we looking at a more generic one for this year?
Well, I'll just say, I feel like a broken record a little bit, but looking at last year's and the emphasis on the Hood Canal Bridge, I'd say kind of talking, hey, this was a really successful, and I guess that's just my anecdotal experience, but this thing happened during World Cup, the change in operations, and we think it was really successful. And maybe we should. I'm not sure if there's anyone that disagrees with that assertion, but I would say, pushing the camel's full head into the tent would be the goal of this legislative folio.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw some nods on that.
Any other project or main thing you want to include? If we're going to move forward to Hood Canal as we want to improve connectivity with connectivity and Hood Canal Bridge and the deviation was a success. We want to keep that going by having other projects also promote this type of connectivity between the region, and then sprinkle in anything else in there that relates to that connectivity between the peninsula and the other side of the peninsula. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds clean and short and good. That's nice. It's easy to write that.
Yeah.
I think it balances all the good work that was done last time. So I think you have a lot to work with, staff, to produce something. I'm really comfortable with that. And I do think that you could continue with the constant messaging that we're trying to build RTPO capacity. And if it's just this RTPO, I think that would be fine too. But, speaking on behalf of all RTPOs, I think that's a good message as well.
And if you need someone, you can reach out to me. I did this last year, so I'm not sure if you want to, have different voices. But if you need another voice, you can reach out to me and we could try to schedule a time.
Yeah, the main thing I'm trying to also collect is any projects that are good to highlight in the memo, in the outlooks. I'm not necessarily sure which ones you collectively think is a good one. So honestly, your attendance is more about getting that kind of understanding about active projects and other future projects as well. So it's more of like a soundboard. So
great.
Well,
I like it. All Jefferson County people on that committee. It sounds perfect.
Yeah. I mean,
no bias here.
Yeah, I have some projects that I can highlight, but again, there will be more,
Jefferson
Jefferson
related.
focus. So don't want to hog, but if you need some support, reach out to me. I'm happy to help.
I'll make sure it's more balanced. I'll make sure I will make sure that we don't get too Jefferson forward. Ed?
Can't happen. It's impossible. Ed?
Yeah, I was wondering what the board here thinks about the item on the first page, clarified shared street regulations, whether that is still relevant a year later.
I don't believe it is.
Okay.
That was Michael from Paulsbo who knew the most on that piece of legislation. You might want to check with him.
Yeah, reach out. That's all.
Okay. Thank you, Ed. I would not put more time to this. I think that's pretty much all I needed. Some volunteers and some ideas. So
Yeah. And Amna, the tribal project that's on the bottom of the list of the project attachment,
yes, ma'am.
that's still good for Jamestown Slalom Tribe.
Okay.
Great.
Is there any other opposition for any other projects on there that we currently have? Or do we want to modify that list? I think that might be the easiest part to modify at last minute too. So I will focus primarily on the language in the draft, and then will be a bigger discussion around the actual project list. Be different. Okay.
Yeah, I like the way it's divided into needs versus tracking, so that things. I mean, it's the tribe's project is just a project to stay on track because of the funding commitment.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Okay, let's move. Short on time, but we're catching up, so we'll move. Actually, we've caught up. We'll go into the coordinator update.
Let me see. What did I want to add on here? I want first thing I wanted to just mention that was more pressing to me is that we're gonna have the next meeting in October will be in person at Paulsbo. Thank you to Paulsbo for hosting. Ed will be the one facilitating that one there. So I will not be here, unfortunately. I apologize. And so I just want to make sure everyone knows it's in person. We are still moving forward having the meetings. We're promoting in person, but there's remote access, of course, to make sure we have quorum as well to help facilitate, help with some presentations we're going to have during that day. In addition to that, we have invited all the legislative folks to attend as well. I haven't received any approval, we're going to be there. But I'm assuming that we might get something back by November, hopefully, from folks to say yes or no if they're going to attend. So it'll be a good time for networking and meet people in person, as well as for us here to see each other, have some lunch after, and continue to throughout the same momentum we got in April as well for being in person. So there's just no catering involved in this process. So. Do you have anything to add? Anything that's pending that's really on you right now?
Thank you for emphasizing the hybrid option of that meeting, as we know it's a long travel distance for folks. I do encourage, if people want to take transit to the city hall, parking is limited. If you park at our North Viking Transit Center, we have a bus route, the Route 344 will take you right downtown. That's what I'm going to do so that way we don't have I'm not taking up a parking space if I can help it. So I encourage that mode of transportation.
That's good job staying on message there. I appreciate it. It's good. Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
We caught up very quickly. So
yeah. And there was a question on sending information out on that in-person meeting.
It should have been in the invite update, but I will send it to you just to make sure it's not confused. Sorry about any confusion with that.
Okay.
And then the location and time, parking information should be on the agenda when we send that out 5 days prior.
Yes.
Yeah. And always accessible on the PRTPO website as well.
Yes.
Okay. If there's nothing else from the coordinator update, we'll move on to public comment. If there's anyone with us from the public and you'd like to make a comment on any item, we'd love to hear from you. You can hit the raise hand button or *9 if you're on the phone, and we'll bring you over for 3 minutes of public comment.
Not seeing anyone from the public,
No.
both online or in person.
Okay.
It's me and the owl.
Just the owl doesn't have anything to hoot. Okay. We'll close public comment and move on to member updates. Does anyone have some news of hopefully good news to share? Updates from the board. Go ahead, Wendy.
I have not been notified officially by FMCIB, but you know that freight mobility process that Amna and Ed sent out for all of us to pursue. It looks like the Jamestown Tribe's application with Washington State Parks got some traction, and we're on a staff recommended list. And it's probably the long haul wait for the legislature to approve the program funding. And then we'll be able to be working on a project that touches upon the county line, Clallam and Jefferson, Highway 101 vicinity.
Great news. Thank you, Wendy. Anyone else with something to share? All right. Looks like everyone's ready for the weekend.
Thank you all.
Okay. Anything for the good of the order before I adjourn this meeting?
Go to the Clallam County Fair. Day 2 today.
Day 2 of the fair. All right.
Ends on Sunday.
Great. Laura, did you have something to share?
It's at County Fair.
Well, share the dates. You're gonna have a rodeo, aren't you?
Next week.
Cool.
Exciting. All right. Clallam this week, Kitsap next. And, Jefferson was last week. So, all right. Great. Well, thank you, everyone. And we are adjourned. Have a great week. Thank you, Amna. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.